Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Ooh, it's loud. I don't think I need this. Uh, it's so great to be here. Actually, my wife and I were married in Oneonta. She's from Oneonta. So she wanted to come here and be with us, but she couldn't. She asked me if I could take a selfie with all of you, but I don't have my phone with me, so we'll have to share pictures with her. I'm so excited to be here. This feels like a homecoming for me. We're based out of Oakland, California, but I love this part of the country. I've heard really great stories about innovation, stories about attracting talent, so I hope you'll find my presentation to be relevant. I'm going to start by sharing something with you. On January the 19th, it really drove home to me what it means to be a great place to work and what it means for an employee to work in a great place to work. I was making just a normal visit to the bathroom. I had a cold. I was taking cold medicine. And when I came to, I was in an ambulance being rushed to the hospital. I had blacked out, I fell, I hit my head. I had a mild traumatic brain injury, a lot of other injuries. But while I was in the hospital lying on the bed in the emergency room, the young man who was attending to me was a nurse. And let's just say Joe for an example. I'll use Joe as his name. And he was sitting with my wife, and he had such great bed presence. He seemed like he had been doing his work for many, many years. He was almost more effective for us than a doctor was. And my wife, I remember her asking him the question, "How long have you been working here?" And he said, "I haven't been working here that long. I just started about a month ago." Now you can imagine how I felt hearing him say, "I've only been here for about a month." But then he went on to describe what it was like to work there. He said, "I have this wonderful boss who understands me, he gets me, he trains me, he cares for me." He went on and giving these adjectives about his boss. And then he closed by saying, "And this is a great place to work." Now, I immediately heard that word, great place to work, and I'm like, I feel like I'm in really good hands. And I actually went over to my wife and I said, "You know what? I think the heart monitor is starting to calm down. I'm starting to relax." And she said, "Unfortunately, you're not hooked up to anything right now." I think it was the something beeping with the air conditioner. But imagine how a person on the front line could almost serve the role of a doctor. He was so professional. He knew what he did so well, and he hadn't been there that long, but he described his boss as being a great leader. That's truly what it means to be a great place to work. It empowers the people on the front line to make a huge difference. So as you're adding talent to the city, you're growing your company, know that the power will rest in the people that are on the front line. And hopefully what I share with you is, how do we make that experience for the people on the front line so favorable that they can go above and beyond what you would expect they could do? So who are we as Great Place to Work? We're in 58 different countries, so what I share with you is irrelevant around the world. It's not just US-based. We also talk to a lot of organizations, over 10,000 organizations, across the board, different sizes, different industries, and we talk to a lot of employees. So over 10 million employees' voices make up what I'm about to share with you. So it's rich in the stories that people tell us about what makes a great place to work. We know that we can't be innovative as an organization, we can't be innovative as a community, or even as a world if we're not tapping into the talent that we have out there. So what does that look like? It's a part of our mission to create a better place, a better world, by creating a great place to work. You're trying to create a better world by creating a better community here in central New York. And the way you do that is by creating opportunities, just like you saw with SRC, where people are being so nourished in their work environment that they want to do well in the community. That's what it's all about. So we strongly believe we can shape the world. We know that it's better for business. I'll show you examples of how it drives revenue, it drives retention, all those things that are important to you as you grow your organizations. It's also better for people. I have never met anyone who told me they didn't want to work for a great place to work. I traveled with a backpack with a logo on the back that says great place to work. And especially young people will tap me on my shoulder and they'll say, "I want to work for a great place to work." So it only makes sense that people want to work there. Okay? Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So why is it that a great place to work still isn't the norm? It's an exception. And how can we make it the norm? Not to start with bad news, but if you ask people, and we're based on trust, and I'll tell you more about that later, but less than half the population, from a normative study that we did, work in a high-trust environment. So if you're leading an organization, you have a project that you want to get done, and you're giving it to the 51% of the people who feel like they're not working in a high-trust environment, how good is that? What kind of outcome can you expect? And so what do the average employee tell us about their work experience? They tell us that there's favoritism. Only 33% say that managers don't play favorites. The majority feel like there's favoritism. They also feel like there's politicking and backstabbing. The only way to get forward in this organization is through politicking and backstabbing. They tell us it's not an emotionally healthy place to work. So you can see all these things paint the picture that being a great place to work is still an exception and not the norm. And hopefully what I can share with you is some tidbits of information on how do you make it the norm. It's not complicated, but it's not easy. So there's always this gap. Everyone wants to work in a great place to work. All the leaders want to create a great place to work. If you've ever been on the tube in the UK, you hear the word mind the gap. You see signs about mind the gap. So what's in the gap between the aspirations we have as an organization and as leaders and how people actually experience the culture? I hope to sort of close the gap and help you understand how you can do that. So we know that people want the same thing, regardless of who you are, regardless of where you work. They're telling us that they want the same thing from their boss and from their organization. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are working. They tell us they want respect. So what do we mean by respect? They want to know that my ideas have value. They want to know that you care about me as an individual as much as you do about as an employee. Because I'm actually an employee, I'm an individual, and I'm also a member of society. I want to do well, so they want to have respect as a part of their experience in the workplace. They also want to know that my leaders are credible. And this has nothing to do with technical expertise. I mean, they want to make sure that you understand how to get us to where we need to go, but more so, they want to know that my leader cares, my leader communicates well, my leader is very transparent in how they communicate, my leader is approachable. All those things create a sense of my leader being credible. The last part of really building trust is fairness. No matter what I look like or what I bring to the workplace, I want to feel like I'm valued, feel like I make a difference. So credibility, respect, and fairness builds the element of what we consider trust in the workplace. And that's vitally important. It was the same 30 years ago when we started this organization, and it still holds true today. So we start by building trust. Trust is created by leadership. And then people also want to enjoy the people they work with. You've seen examples of the award winners. People want to be with people who they feel like they can really have fun. When we ask people, describe what it is to be a great place to work, one of the words they use most often is fun. So it's okay to have fun and also get things done. They also want to have a sense of camaraderie. I want to be with the people that I enjoy, and that brings a sense of pride at work. So those are the things that creates a great place to work. They were true 30 years ago. They still hold true today. So any workplace, anywhere, is an example of what it takes. I love this quote by Warren Buffett. Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's not there, no one really notices it. But when it isn't there, it's very noticeable. Case in point, if you're an NBA fan, you're watching the NBA playoffs, there's something missing this year. It happens to be LeBron James. Now, I'm a big Lakers fan. I grew up being a Lakers fan. I'm also a big LeBron James fan. I went to grad school in Cleveland, followed his career. So everyone had high hopes. This is like media day, the beginning of the season. Everyone had high hopes that the Lakers were actually going to be in the playoffs. May not win the championship, but they're going to be in the playoffs. Something went wrong. And actually, like midway through the season, it went wrong. What went wrong? Here's a quote from NPR. They're asking a sports writer from the LA Times, what happened to the Los Angeles Lakers? Part of what he's saying is players were actually publicly announced that they were going to be traded. They lost faith in leadership. End result is there was a broken level of trust in the organization. So whether it's a sports team, whether it's a hospital, whether it's an engineering firm, when trust is broken, the organization can't perform at its best. It can't be at its top potential. So trust is so critically important. And we want to create a great place to work for all, so everyone is experiencing trust. Whether you look like this lady, who may feel like I'm the only one, or this lady who may feel like I'm the only one and no one understands me, or this young man who wakes up every day way earlier than any of us wake up to care for his disabled child before he gets to work. We want everyone to feel like they're working in a great place to work. That's so important. As you grow your businesses here in the central state of New York, and as you grow and try to attract talent, this is critically important. This really describes what our model looks like, and I'm going to give you a little bit more background on why this is so important, but it's built on trust. We also look at values. Your values are so important. I've heard the story that if your values don't cost you money at some point in time, they aren't true values. So if I have a value of quality, and there's a product that I'm not quite sure lives up to the quality that we expect, I don't release that product, because that's a part of my values. Okay. We're also looking at maximizing human potential. Everyone in the organization has a chance to flourish. We want leaders to create not only strategic cohesion, connect people to the strategy, but also create an emotional resonance with people, a personal connection with people. What happens when all those things are in place? We have financial growth, we have innovation. And I've heard how important innovation is to all of you. This is an example of what it looks like from a stock market return. For over 20 years, we've been evaluating this for best companies versus the Russell 3000 and the Russell 1000. So 3 times the stock market return for those other two. Now the question could be, is it a causal relationship? Does a great place to work drive financial results? Or if I just work in this company that's doing really well, do I feel like it's a great place to work? And we've had people who are much smarter than me study this, and there is a causal relationship. You build a great place to work, you drive financial results. Here's an example, a high-trust organization. These are all of our certified companies. When you build a high-trust organization, your revenue growth is 3 times that of the bottom quartile of even the best companies. When you maximize on human potential, your revenue is 3 times that of the bottom quartile based on the best companies. And likewise, when you're driving innovation and people feel like they're a part of innovation, it drives revenue growth 4 times the bottom quartile. And I want to talk more about innovation, not from an R&D perspective or product development, but more about what are the conditions that create this feeling that I can be a part of innovation. What are the cultural conditions that allow people to innovate and allow people to flourish? So it starts with what we talked about: trust, values, leadership effectiveness, maximizing human potential. All these things are really the bedrock of what it means to be a great place to work. Really important today, because the question becomes, with technology, the digital transformation, what's work going to look like? What are the jobs that are going to be there? What jobs will be eliminated? What is left for humans to do? We can't answer all those questions, but what we do know that is, as leaders, if we can create the conditions for people to be creative, exercise critical thinking, all those things are going to make sure that people are resilient and they can go wherever the technology takes us. That's the key. So we need to make sure we're allowing humans to be the best that they can be, people to be the best that they can be. Mindsets, cultures, skills, behaviors, all those things are critically important as we go into this digital transformation. So what does it look like for a leader who's positioning people to be able to make that journey? We went through all of our data and we started asking employees and we started looking at comments they make. When you have an ultimate experience in the workplace, what are your leaders doing? What are the simple things they do every single day? What does the behavior look like? And here's what they told us. First of all, the leader builds strong connections with everyone. People are telling us that it's not just certain groups my leader connects with, but my leader is able to connect with everyone on the team. They're also telling us that my leader isn't just interested in the work that my organization or my group does, but they care about the work that's being done across the organization. Same holds true in a community. I'm not just interested in this county, but I'm interested in every county around here. We work together to make things better. People are also telling us that my leader reinforces the big picture. And this is really important around innovation because brevity can be the disaster of innovation. If I'm only talking about the things that my group needs to focus on, if I'm only getting people to think about their job, there's no way I can see the big picture. There's no way that I can innovate. So the leaders are building strong connections with everyone. They're making strong connections across the organization. They're reinforcing the big picture. They're also doing things in a selfless way. They're quieting their ego. They're caring more about the success of other people. And then last but not least, people are telling us that this leader has a learning mindset, which is really important today because as things change, I have to make sure that people can quickly learn and quickly unlearn. I'm no longer required to have all the answers as a leader. I'm required to make sure that I get the answers from other people. So we're building this learning environment where people can quickly learn and quickly unlearn. The other thing people tell us is that while that's ideal, and that's probably to the far right of this chart, the experiences people have in the workplace today fall into one of 5 different categories. So in other words, their leader is creating an environment in one of these 5 categories. The first 3 are not ideal. We see so many organizations that have leaders who were good individual contributors, they were good technically, they were asked to take on a leadership role, they're not really good at it, and they don't really want to do it. So it's a disservice to the organization. Google's an organization that learned quickly that my best engineer doesn't make my best leader. So I want to make my best engineer the best engineer, and I want to make my other people leaders. We also have leaders that are kind of a level above that. We call the hit or miss leader. Sometimes my leaders are great, and sometimes my leader's not so great. And then we have the transactional leader. This leader gets things done, but they're only concerned with their business unit or their people and no one else. So the people that tell us they're experiencing a great workplace experience describe their leaders in these 4 and 5 categories. Behaviors that I shared with you on the screen earlier are the behaviors their leaders are demonstrating. So my leaders are not just concerned with my work, but they're concerned with a larger organization. As you grow your organization, you bring on more people, you hire more leaders, make sure that you're trying to get leaders to understand that the way for us to create a great place to work is to exhibit those behaviors, those 5 that I shared with you earlier. The first 3 create a drag on the organization, and the other 2 create an accelerated culture, and the one in the middle is kind of a neutral scenario for people. So know that every organization, the biggest difference between the Fortune 100 companies and all the others is they have leaders that are consistent across the organization. There's an experience being made for employees that are consistent across the organization. That's the most important thing. So keep in mind, as we move through change, what's the most important thing that's going to help people navigate change? This goes back to the innovation conversation. One of the things we ask people on our survey is, have you had an opportunity to be a part of innovation? We don't describe what it looks like. We don't define innovation. We just simply ask, have you been a part of innovation? Now, in our mind, it means I'm creating space for people to imagine how to do things better. Some of that imagination leads to creativity. They try things differently, and some of that creativity ends up being innovation. So that's sort of the continuum of what we're thinking about when we talk about innovation. But what we find is that the way people describe their experience falls into 1 or 3 categories. The best companies on our list, for every 2 employees who haven't had a chance of being a part of innovation, there are a number of employees, actually 11, who tell us they have been a part of innovation. So you have 11 people that are ready to take on the task. They're ready to offer up opportunities or ideas. They're ready to move with the organization. And you only have 2 people that are sort of creating a drag. The middle of the road are these functional companies that have 5 people that are ready to innovate or say they get those experiences for every 2. And then we have this frictional organizational situation where most people are struggling. Almost half the people are struggling to innovate. Remember, I mentioned one of the ways to build trust is through respect. One of the ways to demonstrate respect is to ask people for their ideas. So these people, the 11 to 2, they have leaders who are asking about ideas on a regular basis. Why is that so important? The previous slide, those 3 categories, in the green are the accelerated category, the blue is the middle category, and then the lighter blue and then the dark blue is the frictional. So we have 3 statements here. People are willing to come to work. They're excited about coming to work. When they have innovation opportunities, you can see in the green bar how that makes a difference in my feeling of wanting to come to work. So if my leader is asking me about ideas, engaging me in conversations on how to do things better, I'm really excited about coming to work. We also have a statement here. People here are ready for change. People are agile, ready for change. If I'm being involved in innovation and my ideas are being solicited, you can see how people feel about change. They're looking forward to change. And last but not least, I would strongly endorse the company or advocate for the organization. If I feel like I'm a part of innovation, I want to tell others about this organization. So as you grow your employee base here, you grow your organizations, keep in mind that as a leader, and all your other leaders, we have to get ideas from people. That changes their whole perspective of whether or not it's a great place to work. Here is anyone recognize? I'm sure you shop at Wegmans. I put this here not because I just love cauliflower rice, and I love the cauliflower pizza crust, but I believe this drives home the point of what I'm trying to make about innovation and getting people involved in idea generation. Okay, about 15 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with celiac. And the food at the time was like cardboard. It was horrible. Thank God for Wegmans when we lived in the East Coast, because we finally found a place where we could actually get great food that met her dietary needs. But this cauliflower rice has become like a staple of our household. And I'm going to give you this brief description of what the story is as told to us. But you have an employee at Wegmans who's caring for a husband, who's dealing with some health issues, exploring the type of diet that can help her husband along his journey. At the same time, you have an organization that's looking for the next great thing to provide its clients, something that's innovative. And this lady was able to take her own personal journey of exploring cauliflower rice, bring that to the organization, who's actually looking for additional things to bring to their customers. It all comes together, and now you have this flourishing item that's on the shelves or that's in the cooler that creates an opportunity for people to have great food, to meet their dietary needs, and it all was a marriage of an employee who had great ideas, and you have a company who was looking for those ideas and embraced those ideas. That's what it's all about. So people are more than willing to give their best. It's just up to us as leaders and up to us as organizations to create the conditions where they can do that. So how would I leave this whole conversation and we go back to the normative study? Know that this is a general population. When you ask people if they've been involved in innovative activities, this is what they tell us. Not really a pretty picture. Most people don't experience what Wegmans is creating for their employees. Why? A couple of factors. Number one is just everyday fear. They tell us the fear is not that someone's going to yell at me. The fear is that I can't be all of me. I can't tell you that I have a handicapped child. I can't ask for time off from work because I'm fearful that if I'm not there, I don't look committed. So people describe scenarios around fear. They also talk about there's a frontline manager funk. This is not a Bruno Mars new song, but it's a scenario where the frontline manager feels like, I'm so overwhelmed, there's no way I can engage people in any conversation around innovation. They also talk about purpose gap. I work virtually. I'm not in the headquarters. I'm not in the office. No one reaches out to us. We don't have a connection. Therefore, it gets in the way of us offering up ideas. They also talk about running too lean. We don't have the resources. And last but not least, stagnating minds. I'm a long-tenured employee. I'm not valued the way I used to be. And so I'm just sort of sitting there and I don't know how to contribute. Those are the barriers that we see and that people tell us get in the way of innovation. So just keep a lookout for those things because they exist. Simple things you can do in a closing, broaden the communication. So if you're communicating with your team, your employees, create a larger aperture where you're giving them more information than you would normally give them. It helps them understand how to contribute. Reflect on how you connect. What's the best scenario you've ever had where you felt connected? Bring that to your team members. And then last but not least, ask for help. We as leaders don't have all the answers. We need to ask people for help. They'll give us that information. It'll actually create an innovative culture and a great place to work for all. So thank you for having me here. I hope that's very helpful as you grow your industries here, as you grow your organizations. Nothing complicated, nothing sophisticated, but it's hard to execute on a regular basis. So thank you.